I'm gonna do this again. Today's my birthday, so I'm under the impression that I can do and say whatever I want. So, I spent the last about a week and a half talking to people, people who come into work, absolute strangers at Walmart, anywhere I was at, just talking to people about our story and Bubby being a donor, if they're donors, just kind of reaching out to people around here, just wanted to know where everybody stood. My biggest question for everybody is why they're not a donor if they're not a donor. What made you make that decision not to do that? Are you just not informed? Are there actual things that you've heard? So I've really been like just out there trying to find people who are willing to talk to me about that. And most people are really very open about it. And I just wanted to kind of hit on the things that I've heard for the most. The biggest thing that I've heard from people, they're not a donor because people are out there buying their organs and they're waiting out there. There's this, I guess, this movement for these incredibly rich Hilton peoples to purchase your organs, and they don't want to sell their organs to them. That one was kind of incredibly, that was funny for me. I can promise you that nobody purchased Bubby's organs. Nobody's contacted me to purchase his organs. That was nothing that we got to experience. So I'm gonna go ahead and call that one a myth. No one's out there buying our organs. But the one thing that I heard the most of everybody, and I kind of hit on this with ABC the other day, is that the biggest fear is that when you are a donor, that the doctors and the nurses are going to stop. They're going to stop caring. They're going to stop treating you. They're going to basically give up. And I just wanted to share a little bit of our story with that and how that worked with us, because that was definitely not how everything happened with Bubby. So just a little bit of backstory. Everything happened with Bubby on the 28th. We went to the hospital. On the 29th, they called time for him. The tests and things that they had to do, he didn't meet the criteria to be able to function without all of the many machines that he was on. So by law, because he didn't reach a certain percentage, doctors had called his time on the 29th. At that point, it was just a few family and friends that were there with us. My mom was coming down, and when the doctors pulled me out of the room to tell me how they had done everything, and his time legally was called that afternoon on the 29th, asked us what we wanted to do. And we requested a little bit more time with him on the machines so that my mom would have an opportunity to see him, and a few other people who wanted to. Hi everybody, I see you. The people who wanted to come back and say their last words to him. So again, just the time frame again, everything happened on the 28th. On the 29th, they ran all the tests. He was unable to function. His body wasn't able to work without all the machines. So time was called on the 29th. All the paperwork says the 29th. However, we still had our time with him until that next Friday. So anyway, we asked the doctors for a couple more hours for my mom to come down. And in that amount of time, Lifelink had come in and talked to us about being a donor. It's crazy because we've talked about this as a family before, but we've never talked about it with any of the doctors or nurses. You just don't think about it when it's that kind of stuff going on. So they came in and they talked with us. Kevin and I went to another room and we decided that this was definitely what we were going to do. This is what Bubby had wanted. We talked about this before. Not many people get an opportunity to talk to their children about being a donor. We fortunately did. So we knew we were going to do this. It took Lifelink from Tuesday until Thursday around 6 o'clock to have all the matches for Bubby's organs. So, but in that amount of time, we were there for a few hours before any of the doctors or anybody had known anything. We actually didn't sign the donor papers until the 30th, So up until the 30th, none of the doctors or anybody, as far as we knew, were aware that Bubby was going to be a donor. So all they knew was that there's this little boy who had just went through everything that he had gone through, and they had called time, and the doctors were allowing us a few more hours, or the time that we needed to have our piece with it, and have people come in that needed to come in. That was all anybody knew. We hadn't actually signed the papers and started anything with the Lifelink yet. But I just wanted to point out, again, because this is such a big thing that I've heard from so many people, that the doctors just stopped caring. In our personal experience with Bubby, we never had to worry about that. I can't stress enough that not everybody knew what was going on with him being a donor, but I can promise you that Elijah was treated, the whole time that we were there, was treated like he was going to walk out of that hospital room any day. There was never a question of some, the Hiltons or Clintons or whoever else you could possibly think of buying organs. They weren't standing outside of our door. They weren't out there to purchase anything from us. Nobody was buying our organs. He was taken care of as if he was going to walk out of that hospital any day. Like he was just going to come home and everything was going to be fine again. Never did we feel like they encouraged us to sign papers or to do anything. In fact, they were very good with coming in and anytime they had to change his meds, even after the fact. No, I can't stress this enough. When I say after the fact, Bubby's time was called on the 29th. Alright, that was a Tuesday. They didn't wheel Bubby back to do the transplants of his organs until Friday. So all of that time that we were there, that is extra time that we got to have with him. Those are moments that we ordinarily wouldn't have been able to have. Like the average person who didn't choose this organ donation wouldn't have had that extra time with him. And we had that time with him. And they came in and they took care of him so well, all the way down to adjusting him on the bed so he didn't have bed sores, so he was comfortable. Anytime anytime that they came in to change his medications, they pulled me to the side after the fact, after the time was called. Anytime that they did anything with him, they pulled me to the side and they talked to me about it. They let me know what they were still doing, and they followed up with going into the room and talking to him, whether they would touch his hand and let him know that they were there and they were doing it. Sorry, somebody's calling me. That was a stranger. It just keeps calling all the time. Anyway, maybe they'll hear my story. But the whole time we were there, they took care of Bubby like he was going to walk out. And it really is important to me that people hear that, because that is the number one reason that people tell us that they're not donors, that they're worried that the doctors are just going to stop and they're going to quit caring. And that's just not the case. That's not how we experienced it. I hope that none of you ever have to experience something like this. I can tell you that if I could go back in time, we would never have to go through this ourselves as a family. But I would not ever change the staff that we had, the doctors that we had, the Lifelink people that came in and talked to us. They were very good to Bubby. They were very good to us. And I just want to squash that. That myth is just, I can't stress enough how that is just a fear tactic that people are using. These donors are using this as a fear tactic, and it's unnecessary. I mean, we call pro-life, and then if you're not pro-life, they call them pro-death. Well, that's kind of where I'm going at with anybody who's a donor. You might as well be out there doing the same thing, because you're not saving a life. So don't be a donor, and because again, it's my birthday and I can do what I want. I'm going to encourage you to comment on this post. Let me know. Show me that you're a donor. Just that little thing in your driver's license that says you're a donor. If you're not a donor, I asked Miss Kenzie, the fabulous Kenzie, I asked her if she would please post on here the website you can go to, and you can sign up to be a donor on there. It'll update everything for you. It's just you can tell 100 people you want to be a donor, but it needs to be on your driver's license. It needs to be documented. You need to let somebody else know. Trust me when I tell you, it's a burden that you shouldn't leave to your family to have to make. If you want to do that, if you want to save lives, if you want your legacy to move on, if you want to be part of this movement, please do that. So show me you're a donor. I don't want to hear your good birthdays. I love it. Thank you so much. But I'd rather hear that you're a donor. And if you're not a donor, I'd rather see that you go and you sign up, listen to our story, do your own research. There you are, Miss Kinsey. I see it on there. It's www.registerme.org. So you can update everything on there. And if you're not a donor, go there, do it, and then show me that you did it. Let us know, and let's see what you're greater than. Have a good night.